All right. So we are in it. We're in it to win it. The grid of id. It is the state of
Everything.
yeah. See, I just forgot what it was called. How you doing, man? What's up?
I'm good. Here we are, Wednesday, another week, another what feels like millennium has passed.
Are you just
We're
feeling
here.
yourself today, bro? Are you like feeling yourself? Are you like fucking woke, dude?
Yeah, man. I'm the wokest of the woke.
Dude,
Trying to stay woke.
man, it's rough out
whatever
there. Rough out.
whatever that means today. But yeah, man, it's I don't even know what we talked about. I guess the Mueller thing. I don't even
Dude, Barr is totally just lying his ass off. He's like just working with Trump, dude. I'm following all the conspiracies of the mainstream media right now, dude.
Yeah. Well, there's probably plenty of them. I see this. I think this proves my point, man. The way that you and I feel right now is just everyone thought that, like, you know, Mueller, the report said that it cleared of him everything, and like the whole everything would be done, and we should just move on. And where it just keeps everything takes longer than what people want or expect it to take. I think.
I just don't see why you would reveal anything if you didn't know that it was the fact. Like Mueller would be out there right now saying, like, "Well, wait a minute, like, no, you're wrong." Like, I mean, pretty much the president is absolved of any crime at this point. This has got to be fact. This is what's going on.
How did see? I think this is how could you possibly? I think it's amazing that people actually believe that you know this summer no wrongdoing and that he did nothing wrong and he's totally. I think that is we nobody. I just think that that's amazing that like that message can so successfully cross and reach people. I mean, get like just the fact that like I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean. I'm just like
Truth, man, it's the truth, bro.
400 pages. I think this is just a perfect. I think in the future we're going to look back and study how different stories just spread and exist just so separately with like some crossover in the middle. If you look at like um, those cloud studies, right? Like word clouds, um, you know, just size of like the most important thing going on or whatever, word association between different populations of people. If you visualize that, I think like you'd have like two separate word clouds, like, you know, I guess liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans. There's like no independence anymore, it seems like. And then within those clouds are like, collusion and, traitor, treason and everything. And just people like nobody, I guess we're waiting for enough people to cross over into a majority. And I think a majority already exists and the Trump is not so trustworthy. We should be skeptical of things and we still want to see this report. And we really haven't learned anything. All we know is a couple of things that if you really read these words are actually pretty revealing and portend much danger and doom for the Trump family and the presidency in general. Then, I just think my point is that, man, I really like hit the ground running here. We got right into it right off the bat. But I think that, yeah, it's too early. There's still, I think we're all tired and this is annoying, but they're gonna Nadler, Jerry Nadler is like setting up. He just sent like Mueller a letter. He's basically setting up for a legal case, I think, to go to the Supreme Court over releasing the report or parts of it. And if you look at it, it really doesn't look good for Barr. Like, he doesn't have much strength in this, given what precedents, in past special prosecutors or independent prosecutors or whatever, counsels, 90s, 80s, 70s. Everyone knows Watergate, but yeah. So that's what people are saying. I guess the latest story, and I think the later this goes on, closer to 2020, I don't know. That doesn't seem to be all this information about. I mean, do you in your gut of guts, do you really think that 300, 400 pages of investigation and evidence is going to exonerate Trump? I mean, why do you think these people are all fighting about everyone's, Trump is trying to turn it around and say he doesn't want it released anymore. So,
we need it released. I mean, we need it released.
But that's why, like, why would he not want it? If all this evidence was there that was waiting to prove to the American people of his innocence and his exoneration, wouldn't he want that to be given? I mean,
I don't know anything about that. I mean, this guy is insane. I mean, there's been so many things where, like, there's dozens of times over the last couple of years where, like, oh, this is it. This is the one. This is going to get him. It's like it gets so old because, I mean, he's still there. And look, I mean, he doesn't reflect my value system. I don't think he's generally a good president. I don't think he's the worst president we've ever had, but he's definitely not anywhere close to being the best. And look, I like you. I mean, I'm a bit of a conspiratorial person, but you always tell me to, believe in the sanctity of our institutions, man, and like not to just keep these conspiracies going forever and say, oh no, but there's a chance, and look, we don't know yet. And it's like, well, of course we don't know, but I'm trying to take things at face value. And what I know now is he didn't commit a crime, he didn't collude with Russia, but he's not exonerated. So I don't know what that means, and I'm frankly sick of speculating about Russia because it is turning, it's devolving into a Russia-gate conspiracy. And I don't want to say that because I want the truth out there and I want the facts. But like, I'm so sick of it turning into a witch hunt when it should be, let's just get to the facts. I mean, from the very beginning, when Trump got elected, there were so many people who were just mad at because they didn't like him. It's like, but you have to have real reasons for, like, why are you going to impeach him? Like, why is a Democratic candidate better than Trump will be in 2020? Let's veer more into that and not wait until, like, oh, but Russia, like, it's got to be Putin. Like, of course it's Putin. It's like, well, fuck Putin, man. I'm sick of that shit, dude. Let's move on about America, man. Let's try to get some real America first Tulsi Gabbard shit going, man.
Oh, my God.
I'm here sick of all these conspiracies, man. We got to get back to the issues that the people care about, all right? Vote Ronald Reagan.
So many things there to respond to.
We're all losing it, man. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I almost don't even know where to begin. I think to think so strongly about you say you want to see the evidence, but at the same time it's a conspiracy. It's like, well, all people want is to read the evidence, which is the report, and then look at it and judge it and learn and have that. We live in a democracy that people should know.
I agree. I totally agree. So until we have all the facts, that I'm done with it. Until we see what the fucking report actually says, there's nothing else to say at this point. What else is there to say?
Yeah, but that's not how it works. The way that it works is that you don't let people move and change the subject and try to distract people and let it go behind and create insane, meandering, bumbling. He's losing his mind. Okay, every day he's losing his mind. He said orange 3 times instead of origin. He lied about, like, in 3 times lied about where his father was born.
He's senile. I don't like him. So let's work on.
So these are things that you can't talk about anything else until you get this unstable and potentially traitorous, or very horribly intentioned, moralless person out of office.
He's corrupt. He's corrupt. There's a lot of businessmen and
but that's what you said. You said, what do we need to impeach him to prove that's a Democratic candidate or replacement? New president would be better. I mean, we're both agreeing on these things, but you need to continue to look. Every day there's a new crisis about, maybe Jared Kushner was given a special clearance, top secret. Maybe John Bolton was the person who got, this approved and who has, is potentially open, compromise to foreign people or their finances. They have used drugs or potentially open, our most secret, that's national security. Every day there is something new. This is just the most recent and really a seriously dangerous one. But so what? So look, you try to put down the fires that are happening right now. You also pay attention to a very consequential issue that brought this whole insanity that we're experiencing every day into being in the first place. The insanity that we're experiencing today is a result of 2016 and whatever the hell happened there. So if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be in as bad of a situation as we are now. So maybe we should look and continue and just try to maintain our sanity while we're paying attention to all these things, and not forget that the origination of much of the insanity and stupidity of the modern moment right now in pop culture and politics, whatever, is pop culture is a little bit ridiculous. That would be happening anyway. But politics specifically, all this, just political nonsense that's happening, fake news and shit.
The thing is, whether or not Russia fucking, won the election for Trump, it doesn't change the fact that he still should have won against Hillary Clinton in that
80,000 votes. 80,000 votes in 3 states gave him the presidency, and yet this is called hindsight's 2020 or victory bias or victors. The victor gets to tell the story. Whoever wins it, you win a war, you're the ones who gets to say that you were right and your side was the best. The same happens now. The same thing happens now. 80,000 people in 3 states that received probably a decent amount of fake news on, Facebook ads on Facebook these are not conspiracy theories. All of this is documented. We know it. And we're trying to figure this out with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook right now. This is part of it. Okay.
That changes the fact that Hillary Clinton was a historically bad candidate.
Yes. But the point is that she was a historically bad or unattractive candidate. Yes. But there was a major FBI investigation 3 days before people went to vote said, just change. I mean, that's enormously consequential. 11 days before the election, the FBI director says.
So the FBI is corrupt too.
No, that's not. They're not. It's totally. It makes sense. It requires nuance. The story that James Comey, why he announced it publicly, it requires nuance. But that's too long ago. Nobody understands quite why he did it, and so that's why people love hating on Comey. Does anybody? That's going to be a test of whether people can explain their dislike for Comey, and whether or not they understand why he even said it in the first place, why he announced it in the first place. If you can't answer that question, and I'm sorry, I don't mean this at you, I just mean this generally, because he's demonized by the right and he's demonized by the left, and that is the best example that the fact that both extremes hate him so much is a perfect example of just how crazy both have gone, and the fact that there is no, he doesn't fit perfectly into either storyline of who caused what. The fact that both sides hate him is like, you know, I mean, I think that you can understand his faults, and it wasn't protocol, and that's why there were legitimate grounds, i.e. the letter that Rosenstein wrote to fire him were based on legal opinions from a fair amount of people across the country. Former attorney generals agreed with him. But Rosenstein, once he found out that it was just a ruse to get rid of, Rosenstein was asked to produce letters, one in support of Comey and one like basically critical of Comey. And he didn't realize that it was just that they just wanted him to produce the one that was critical and use it to fire him. So once he found out that it was just to get rid of him and it was for the Russia investigation and not for the defensible, reasons that basically he announced this is why it's dull. Maybe I'm just a bad explainer, but ultimately he cleared Clinton of wrongdoing because Sally Yates made a whole host of, through a couple of different reasons, brought into question the objectivity of the FBI and the Justice Department. And then Bill Clinton saw, or no, not Sally Yates, but God damn it. Whatever. Clinton met her on the tarmac, the runway, and they had a 20-minute conversation. So then on the right, everyone got all like, "Oh, we can't trust this investigation. What's happening? They're obviously Clintons are going to, clear Clinton and the Democratic bosses or whatever." And then she said that she wouldn't recuse herself, but she would accept the findings of the FBI. Comey reached out to say that he was going to, this is what he was thinking of doing, announcing it publicly. He received no response from the Justice Department, so he went ahead and he did it, and both sides hated him for it, but he didn't care because he was like, I need to protect the integrity of the FBI. The justice system needs to continue to be blind. And so the Democrats were pissed off. The Republicans were super happy about him. And then it got, the Republicans were super pissed, and the Democrats were happy that he, it wasn't worse, but pissed that he did it the way that he did it and said that she was very irresponsible or something. So, and then that explains why he had to then, after he closed it and then had to reopen it because Anthony Weiner's emails on his laptop were found. So then he had to say, okay, if he didn't tell the American people, but did continue to investigate, and later it was found out that he did that, the Republicans would have had a field day saying that, well, he hid the information and didn't tell the American people that more emails were found and he was going to investigate her. But if he did tell the American people that he was reopening investigation, how could he do that after he cleared her? You had to tell them, but so he was just caught between terrible places. So then he did that, and it just so happened that it was 11 days before an election, and they had to go through 500,000 emails, and they did it in 8 days, and they announced it. But by that point, those 11 days, those 8 days, people think she's not trustworthy. She's not, for all Trump's faults, he does have a good point about the fact, that she, what is this? 8 days right before an election, October surprises, been going back since the dawn of time. So it's not like this was a foregone conclusion that Trump was going, there was a lot of extenuating circumstances. Those grab him by the pussy, that sunk him. That was not good for him. He was not doing well after that last debate or something. So I just don't think that like this whole Trumpism is a reflection. Yes, Trump is bad, and like this movement of like insanity and everything that we're going on. I think that it's a reflection of a lot of people, and maybe this was going to happen at some point, and now it's getting amplified more. And we should learn from it, study this, appreciate it, but at the same point, like it can be changed. We can put the lid back on it, and have a more reasonable, make politics boring again. can like in some ways, like like can we just get to that point? Why is that so crazy? You're happy and you're satisfied. You don't need to pay attention to it. Like it just works. And yeah, it sucks, but like you trust it and it can keep moving on more or less. Like, I don't know.
The more you focus on this, though, it's feeding into this, like Trump becomes bigger and bigger and bigger the more you scrutinize all of his ills. It's almost like this is what people are sick of, man. I'm sick of focusing on this guy. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of saying like, oh, Trump this, Trump that. Like 2016 is the reason for why everything's so horrible, and it's got to be the Russians. It's got to be Trump, and they're horrible people. And it's like, honestly, like this is the difference between me and you. I think you are a researcher at heart, and you're a history buff, and you're not letting it go. You're not letting go that 2016 happened, and it was insane. And I'm more concerned about where we go from here. I've put so much of this mental energy and like emotional labor, I guess you would call it. Like I'm being so triggered right now because I feel like it's assault. It's Trump fucking orange man bad assault, and it's like I'm done with it. We're not moving the needle. The more we focus on this negativity, the more we focus on like, oh, but he's probably a Russian asset still. And it's like, man, that's the reason why it's bad. And the troll farms are going to create all these new memes and fake news. And it's like, there's a lot of fake news out there. And this could be part of it. This could be part of the fake news propaganda. And I want to focus on issues that like daily Americans aren't going to be delving into this the way you are. And that's why you need to go out in DC and go influence your Lindsey Grahams and all those little guys and say like, you guys are full of shit and this is why. But like, you're not going to convince me as just an average American that I have to focus on Russia for the rest of my life every single day and how Trump is evil. It's like, I'm so sick of it. Like, I agree with Trump on some things. I agree with some of his followers on some things. I think he's a piece of shit that needs to be removed from office, not forcibly, but through an actual like rule of law election that we're going to get to next year. And I'm looking at some candidates that can beat him. And now we're entering this weird era where the front runner that hasn't announced yet, my big guy Joe Biden, man, this guy is struggling right now because he's effectively getting Me Too'd. He's getting pound Me Too'd, and it's not a good look for him. And that's what I want to focus on. Like, where we go from here? Who is the candidate that we're going to look at? Because right now, he's your guy. He's a corporate Democrat from the Obama era. He's an old white guy, but he's a lot of good policies and good things that he stands for. But unfortunately, I think that the world has passed him by, and I don't think this is the right time for him. And all of these allegations that are coming out now, if he did the right thing, he would not enter the race.
Well, Joe isn't necessarily my guy, but I would take Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders in a heartbeat any day of the week. And I think most Americans, I think most of Americans would too.
Why?
Saying he's the best qualified for the future.
Why over Bernie though? They're both old white men. One of them is a bit of a radical who believes in one's anti-establishment and one is pro-establishment. You go with the establishment hawk type guys. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I think that Bernie Sanders is the same, anti-establishment, like burn the house down, populist anger that is not going to is the left's equivalent of Trump that will be as likely as ineffective and and be a very I think not only will he be hard or unnecessarily difficult to beat Trump, I think he will be as unsuccessful of a president as Trump, precisely because of he would probably be a candidate that would be untenable in other times, but because it's Trump, he is more tenable. And I think but I think that the right is so extreme that if they got an independent socialist as a president, I think that they would not do shit. And the entire presidency, they would say, "We are fighting socialism. We are fighting socialism. We are afraid of socialism. They're doing it now, saying socialism is everything." What do you think that's going to happen when a president for 4 years is an independent socialist?
You rebrand it. You rebrand, like I said before, into social democracy, or like Maher said on his last Bill Maher thing, capitalism plus. It's not socialism. We have socialism. We're not erasing capitalism. We're adding to it with social programs that can help more people. That's literally what Bernie Sanders' platform is. And I'm sorry, man. Like, this is not the time for Joe Biden. Like, just to go back into this, people are saying he's creepy Joe or handsy Joe or whatever. Look, this is bigger than politics, man. And it's unfortunate because it's such a stupid thing, but it is, though, because now the Harvey Weinstein stuff, that was the pound me too, the hashtag me too moment that was saying sexual assault is wrong. We can't do that, right, in a society. So let's get these guys out of here. Now we're finally entering entering the consciousness now is that general creepiness and handsiness and touching women and like sniffing their hair and getting really close to them when they don't want that. They don't want that, right? And so we're having the conversation now. There's already been controversy about, oh, you can't be an old white man and run for president, and then 2020, maybe that's true. I tend to disagree. I'm not a racist. I don't think I am. I'm not an identitarian. I don't believe in you going into your tribe, and that's who that America's way too complex for any of that nonsense in the 21st century, right? So I think it's good that people are calling out this kind of behavior. We're realizing what is appropriate culturally and where we stand right now in this society at this time. And I'm not saying that that's the only thing you should judge Biden on, but it's like he's a bit tone deaf if he thinks that he can just walk into the most diverse female-centric pool of candidates of all time and say, I'm your guy, and like here's why. It's not a good look. And I think you're saying that the people on the right are going to just slam the socialism thing. I welcome that as a bit of a socialist in some aspects, and you are too. But we should acknowledge that. Most Americans are a bit socialist in some ways. We have to acknowledge what that actually means. Most people they're brain dead, or they don't know, they can't put two and two together, so it's a little bit too complex for their brains just fry. The Biden thing, though, this inappropriate action towards women I think it's bigger than you think, and it's like we need to. I don't think him and Trump, two old creepy white guys, is really good for the country, man. I don't think it's good for the country. I don't think having them battle each other. It's worse than Bernie because he's an old white guy, but he's a bit of a radical. He's an outsider, and he's always been that way. Two old creepy white guys is not good for the country, and it won't be good. It won't be good for 2020.
I agree. I mean, I think in general that Joe Biden is not my guy. He's not like, I never.
He's a front runner though, and you like him more than the other front runner, Bernie.
Yeah, I just between him, if in the old white guy category, between him and Bernie Sanders, I would choose him. I mean, what?
Most of America wouldn't. I don't think.
I don't.
In my opinion. I think people like the grassroots. Real. Screw the system. Let's kind of rebuild a bit in better ways.
How many young people vote versus how many older and middle-aged people vote? I think that there's a lot of people who are older.
I'm sick of the boomers, man. They're ones that ruin the country now, and we have to follow them still. The 16 was a boomer election, and it failed. Both candidates were historically bad. Let's move forward, man. Just because Bernie's an old guy, he vibes more with the young people.
Yeah, but because they don't have as visceral reaction to socialism as other generations do. I just think this is the reality. I mean, I think I think that you made a good point about who's I do think that just the way that this country is right now, that it's either going to be a female Democratic nominee, or Pete. How do you Buttigieg
Buckhead?
something? Yeah, Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. You know, being gay. I think that like those types of things are maybe going. I think they're going to play more of a role in past elections. And yeah, to be a white guy, you're probably at a disadvantage because people are tired of. I mean, and what better? What I mean, look at what our current president is, an old white male, and like look at the job he's doing. So it's like you guys have had your time. I understand it.
It's what it is.
Like,
It's
I'm not like. Go ahead.
It's running the risk of the Hillary Clinton coronation. Like, look at me. I know you're waiting for me, and it's my turn now. It's like, it's not your turn. It was never your fucking turn. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, I would like it to be about the issues. I think it like, but I think the Democrats are doing it thus far. I think that like, you know, it's a pretty diverse field, and with diverse ideas, people are throwing out like some good ideas, some stupid ideas.
How about reparations? That's a thing now.
Beto O'Rourke saying that each of his cabinet members needs to hold a town hall once a month. I just think that's like not maybe as realistic. I see the point of it, but I just don't see you know, our Secretary of State flying to, you know, his. I mean, I don't know. I think that yeah, I think there's, but so I think my point is that like the Democrats are offering ideas. That Russia hasn't been the focus of the Democratic primaries, which have
Thank God.
So I think that's a good thing. People are talking about ideas. I want somebody who's, I do want somebody who's center of the road, or center left.
Tulsi Gabbard is center as this gets.
No, she's not. She
is.
Not when it comes to foreign policy. She's ridiculous. And that's important. Foreign policy is important. Apparently, foreign policy is more important than people want it to be, considering what happened at our last one. But I think that, you know, NATO, the direct, whoever the hell the leader NATO guy was, who was here and just gave a speech to Congress. She didn't stand up or clap one single time. What a message and what a signal that sends. I mean, yeah, you can laugh at it, but it's like, what is she saying? You know, everyone else, Republicans, Democrats, standing up, clapping, just general, basic, don't have to think too hard support of NATO.
Burn it down, baby.
Burn it down, yeah. Yeah, like, come on. What are we not? Are we really not for NATO? Do we not understand the way that global security works? Like, are we going to question that, the nature and the value of alliances? Do we need to go over like alliances 101? You know,
dude, nobody knows anything, man.
Diplomacy 101. Apparently,
yes, we do. Let's reevaluate everything this country stands for. Let's literally do that. Let's
burn it to the ground. Let's check burn everything to the ground.
I'm not saying burn it to the ground. I'm saying let's reevaluate every single thing this country stands for, because nobody knows what it is anymore. And I think it's a problem.
The country will, by not voting for Tulsi Gabbard, or not electing her to be president, the country will have made a choice that, yes, we still want, I mean, presumably, if they do vote for her, then that, I mean, that's what we say, right? Afterwards, the victor gets all the spoils. We say Trump won, so clearly America is in favor of everything that Trump has brought to the White House. So it's like, no, they're not at all. You know, they don't endorse any of his ridiculous, like all the craziness that he has birthed to the world that like gets by because there's two main echo chambers. You know, I think there's people that don't really like a lot of the stupid antics. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's like in the Democrats, if we all go Andrew Yang and universal basic income, if that becomes the overriding issue, then that idea gets endorsed, and then he tries to make it happen. But right now, that's why I'd be happy with just a center left candidate who can work with Republicans, maybe try to bring them back to the table and like pass some laws and act like normal, decent, upstanding human beings to each other, have maybe some decorum and mutual respect in Congress. I mean, these are outlandish things to hope that you're the elected and most powerful people who are steering your country behaved.
Man,
in the past, that's how things passed. People worked with each other, people compromised. People respected each other. It wasn't just about getting ahead of the news story. And at the end of the day, elections weren't fought every single day for 24 hours every single day. That's the way that modern politics works. So maybe it's a fool's errand, and maybe I'm just a simple-minded, good old boy, American who is just a thick-headed optimist, naive optimist. But I would be very satisfied if we had a candidate who, I think that's probably the most likely way that anything will get done, realistically. That's the best chance that we have.
I don't have faith in Americans anymore when they're just like, people love superhero movies and Ariana Grande and are greedy, and like more and more people want fascist authoritarian BS based on what people say on Twitter or whatever that is. It's like, I'm just like, the mainstream media is just it's all garbage, man. Everything is garbage now. This is what you're coming from a very good rational perspective, but it's almost like you're from a bygone era, dude. 2019, everything is garbage. Dating relations are garbage. Men are not wanting to date women anymore because they're like, quote, women aren't women anymore. Like, that's true. People don't know gender roles anymore. I mean, maybe that's good because it's free. It's a free society, but we're just in an era of confusion and really crap art. And I think that has something to do with it, man. Like, shit is so fucking vile now, dude. You walk around, it's like, I go to the gym and it's like, all the music is all about like, let me fuck you, man. It's like horrible. Everything is so vapid and the worst. And I think, I want to get as far away from it as possible. I hate politics. Can I touch on another subject before we go here that is an important one, potentially? Nipsey Hussle, dude. I mean, unless you want to say something.
No, I'm fine with
say something.
Politics.
Nipsey Hussle died, man. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle, a LA rapper. He was shot and killed outside of his LA store just moments before he was about to meet with the police commissioner to discuss violence in his community. So he's a community organizing rapper. And I didn't know much about this until there was like this blown up kind of like thing about, want to talk about conspiracy theories. So he was making a documentary about this, like, do you know about this story?
He was killed. I don't know.
Dude, it's crazy, man. He was making a documentary about this Honduran, like, witch doctor guy who made claims about him curing AIDS and cancer. And people actually uploaded videos proving that, like, they cured him, whatever. He's a bit of a sketchy guy, but he's actually a holistic medicine guy. So it's like, what is sketchy, right? People that are in the medical community in America are always going to say holistic medicine is sketchy because it kind of, it throws their work under the bus and says, oh, you can just, take an herb and be cured for something when I can give you Oxycontin or opioids. So it's this controversial thing where he was making a documentary basically exposing all of this crazy stuff. So this guy was Dr. Sebi, I think his name was. And I think he died in the 90s. Well, I'm not sure the whole story. But he claimed to cure diseases through holistic methods and was killed. He died in police custody in Honduras because they, once again, some kind of mystery death, right? And so this whole controversy is about, like, Nipsey Hussle was actually doing a documentary on this guy, and he was about to uncover some really crazy stuff. He went on The Breakfast Club. I don't remember when it was, but I saw a clip, and he's like, why do they kill holistic doctors? You're short-stopping the grind. You're playing with some pharmaceutical money. So if this guy, I mean, we're going to play the conspiratorial hat on this because it's worthwhile telling it in terms of the story. If this guy did in some way contribute to the cure of AIDS or cancer, I'm not saying he did it, but if he had valuable information, holistic information, and potentially this Nipsey Hussle guy was going to blow the lid on all this, that means it could have been completely critical to this pharmaceutical, big pharma, medical industrial complex, if you will. And his last tweet, his final tweet, Nipsey Hussle before he died, was, quote, "Having strong enemies is a blessing." And he died the day after. So I'm wondering, man, is this connected? Is it all random? But people were mysteriously dying around this Dr. Sebi guy who believed in a holistic, all-natural diet. And there's a movement going on, man. There's holistic medicine that's becoming more controversial and becoming more smashed down upon through online tech companies. And these people are banning people that are saying, oh, there's this kind of cure for this, there's this for that. And I'm just wondering, man, supposedly Nick Cannon, of all people, is going to continue the work of Nipsey Hussle because he thinks that we need this information out that is being stifled. And I'm just wondering if this is all just kind of a ruse or if Nipsey Hussle is actually getting into some really deep and controversial shit. But ultimately, we need to honor the lives of the deceased no matter what and say, like, this is wrong that he got shot. But the fact that he's connected to all this stuff and he was going to uncover potentially some really radical stuff in this documentary, what does this mean, man? Is this a controversy that is related to big pharma or, the police activity in his community, or is it just a random event? I thought I would mention it because it's my own community, it's Los Angeles. I mean, his community was a little bit further out, but it's only about 4 miles where he got shot from where I am right now. And so this is some really, crazy stuff that I'm sure more is going to come out coming forward. And it just makes you kind of think, like, what does it all mean? And is there some kind of potential here in terms of breaking the lid off some controversy? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of lines got to be drawn there. I don't know. I think, like, if depending on what the investigation is and what they turn up as evidence and who, I don't know. See, that'll obviously be important, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't. We'll see. I mean, I don't necessarily. That seems kind of far-fetched in some ways. The fact that, like, big pharma is like a united, cohort. There's a lot of separate companies. I don't know the details of, like, if it was one specific company that he had a falling out with when he, like, however his medicine was not, accepted or just whatever the process was. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. If he was actually working on a documentary about that.
Uncovering potential cures that are potentially controversial to, companies that would be potentially at, their profits could be at stake. If someone said that this holistic doctor in Honduras had some crazy information that was working and, there's deaths connected to him in some way, it's you have to ask the questions, right? It could just be a conspiracy, but
I think that, I mean, I guess, like, I'm just very skeptical of this far right kind of like this weird kind of anti-science, like, it's like anti-vaxxers that is like a weird movement that's, like, catching on and shit. So, like, that just is, like, that inherently makes me skeptical of, like, these grand, theories of just bad scientists and technology and wealthy corporations that, equals, bad. But at the same time, I think the reason that it catches on is because people know that, whatever pharmaceutical company has been responsible for the opioid crisis and just continues to kind of exist and go along and make a bunch of money off of it. They just settled for, like, something like 300 million, I think, the family, 275 million, which, like, really is not bad at all. It sounds like a lot of money, but, like, given how much money they've made, I think, and still make off of the opioid crisis, if they had any part in, like, if they knowingly pushed opioids on people and still are, it's like this is part of the crisis that is not being addressed at all right now. Nobody's doing anything about it, because that's not in the pharmaceutical company's interest, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, man. Like we said this before, like I said this before, can you have complete truth in a corporate bottom line driven society? And it's this whole thing about health too. I mean, I obviously want to believe that doctors are looking out for their patients in the most beneficial way possible for their patients' health. But at the same time, can you have a completely healthy society in a system that profits off of the patients buying more drugs? We talk about this in psychology, where the whole psychiatric industry, at least in California, it's like basically you're buying indulgences. You keep feeding into the system, and they know that they're not going to cure you, but they're going to cure you just enough so you keep coming back for more. And this is actually what happened. You can say it's a conspiracy, but this is actually how people.
I understand the premise.
What's up?
Sorry. I understand the premise, but yeah, I mean, I think that it's more just, I mean, the New York Times article on the Murdochs is really interesting, because it's kind of the equivalent of what you're saying just in media, where like the bigger that he got over the years, he got favors. I mean, nothing was illegal, but or supposedly nothing was illegal, but he was able to grease politicians were kind of able to grease the wheels of his business interests that allowed him to, just basically expand, grow a company that first it was you couldn't have a nationwide, newspaper or a television company in Australia, and he was able to expand and be in multiple different districts or something. So as he grew, and then he went to the UK and helped elect Margaret Thatcher. It was fine. The conservatives needed. You could say that the conservatives needed a point of view, but it's also it's just an important part of the story that as he. He got a lot of it's just a really interesting story that as the laws changed, his business was able to expand. He became more important. Laws he was still able to expand, and certain regulations changed. And now there's some studies that basically say the Fox News used to work for the Republican Party, but now Republicans today are finding that the Republican Party actually works for Fox News. And I think that kind of looks like it, if you think about it today. It's who's helping who? Who is in service to who? And that really does get to the heart of the media. And I mean, freedom of speech is important, obviously.
Yeah.
But when your question of is the pharmaceutical industry just getting you to keep come back for more? Well, is the media Fox News or because I mean I would make the argument very succinctly that the Republicans do not have a message to govern. They don't have anything that they stand for. There's nothing that they.
It's not true. That's not
McConnell shot down Trump's plan for healthcare. It's don't do that. We don't have a plan. They had 2 years. They controlled all of government. What did they do?
Because Republicans don't believe in government. They want private companies to do everything.
So
they want to erase government. They want private companies to do everything. There's different philosophies.
Exactly. But is that tenable, or do the American people want that? They had 2 years to get rid of healthcare, and they couldn't do it because Americans want healthcare.
The Republican Party is going through its own reckoning, and I think I know
Republican Party. So this is but that's my point though, is that there's nothing that they have to offer. So it's what is feeding? When is this how is the Republican Party going to adapt and be realistic in the real world, the 21st century? This year of, our Lord, 2019, what are their ideas for the future, for the present? How do they plan to do anything? What do they have? What are they offering? What does it mean?
This is why I think, regardless of party, I think Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders have the best ideas of where to go forward in this world. The Republicans are all about old money, and old money is not going to work in the future. That's why you're saying, oh, you're going to have to burn it down. I'm not saying burn it down, but I am saying that whatever worked in the past, and you're a history buff, you're going to think, oh, we can just go. No, whatever worked in the past is not necessarily going to work in the future. And that's why we have to radically rethink everything in society so we have a stable future for literally every single person. I honestly believe that. And I honestly believe that Yang and Sanders are the only two people that actually have the wherewithal and the ideas that are going to take us to the next step. I really believe that, man. Convince me otherwise on a different show. It's too late, but that's what pisses me off is the Republicans. I know Republicans, and this is what they think. They think that you can just get by on pure capitalism. They're basically anarcho-capitalists. They don't believe in any government, and they want just old money to just. I make enough money, and I'm here. I'm a rat race guy, but I'm working hard, and it's what it's going to be. I want the government to stay out of my life, protect the First Amendment, Second Amendment. That's all I care about. And if you do absolutely nothing as a Republican candidate, if you say I don't want any government, but I stand for that, they're going to vote for you over the socialist or the crazy authoritarian, identitarian, racist Democrat who says intersectionality is king. This is why we need to rebrand some of these ideas and say you could use a little bit of socialism, and you don't even know it yet.
Yeah, but I feel like you kind of proved my point that they're going to vote for these people that do nothing over the people.
Well, yeah, they will. But we're changing.
Which is my point. Why Bernie Sanders is not the person. That's why you have somebody who's more middle of the road, who is center left, who can bring those people with them. I mean, they're not. Are those people going to get convinced by somebody who is a socialist or who is extremely liberal? That's why I want somebody who, I think anybody who can do any type of basic baseline progress, but meaningful progress. I mean, we think that it needs to be total top to bottom, fresh start, everything. But I think you could totally, if you could just get this country somehow to, experiment a little bit. It doesn't need to be like earth shattering, but I think that if it were basic, well-intentioned, good faith efforts to solve legitimate problems, that are in the healthcare, finance, voting, taxes. I mean,
Bernie Sanders he's actually not, his policies aren't as radical as you think. What I'm saying is they need to be repackaged. He's saying all the things you're saying, and he stands for all the things you stand for, essentially. And a lot of these conservatives, you guys believe in the same things. You're for the people. He's for the people. He was a senator of Vermont. Vermont is a pretty conservative state. So based on him being a successful mayor of Burlington and a successful, reasonably successful senator from Vermont, I can see that he transcends party lines. People hate these. Oh, he's not a Democrat. I hate that he's not a Democrat. Exactly. Fuck the Democrats. He's a fucking centrist, dude. He's an independent. He goes both ways. So this is what I'm saying. So, okay, forget Bernie Sanders. We need a new candidate that's going to take a lot of the same, take the same socialistic fucking policies and rebrand them into something that's not socialism, which is what Bernie's trying to do. But it's almost too late because now everybody sees him as a socialist. We need someone who doesn't say they're a socialist, but still implement socialist things that could help everybody.
I feel like you and I are of the same mindset.
I hate corporate America. I hate the establishment that doesn't care about you and me. I'm not completely anti-establishment, but I want people to stand for the people.
You and I are new to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is not new to many people in this country. Just like Hillary Clinton wasn't new to a lot of voters, more or less, you and me. We're relatively
new, man. He's a radical.
So that's the thing, is that he's not in the game of convincing, anybody who's been around, that he's going to be a new or put a different faith. He is identifiably, he's been an independent socialist his whole time and however long he served in government. So that's who he is. And this country is already just like deathly scared of socialism. I would say overly and unrealistically fearful of socialism without even realizing the safety net that people take for granted, because though they vote for Republicans, they don't like it when, President Bush tried to privatize Social Security. He was barely able to reform Medicare. It was like by the skin of his teeth, and Republicans have hated it ever since. So it's not about reforming, the only thing the Republican Party can do now is cut taxes. And that's not being, it hasn't done it. The benefits aren't being received. People are not, look where it's gotten us. So that's my whole point, is that they don't have a message. There's no, but they need to evolve. But at the same time, this country is still very conservative, and they don't,
I think it's doomed, man. I think we're doomed. I mean, it's just, like I said, give it to Trump, dude. We're just going to keep fighting amongst ourselves. We're not going to agree on anything. I mean, maybe just vote Buttigieg or whatever. Just for the record, though, his name is pronounced like Buddha Judge or Bud Edge. So Buttigieg. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So,
I think maybe that's very, very helpful, actually. I think that's a good.
I saw it because that's what his husband says, So we're going to vote for a nice gay man into office. I mean, I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore. I'm done with all of this.
So I'm going to close with Chicago just elected their first black female mayor, who also happens to be gay, and she's an outsider. And I'm not holding my breath, nor should anybody, any real Chicagoan. I feel like, not that I am one, but it's we will see what this means for the Democratic machine that is Chicago, and if that city can clean itself up.
Well, let's hope America can clean itself up, because I think people are just getting stupider by the minute. So. Well, it was a pleasure talking about frustrations with you, and
yep, sounds good.
I think that's the end of that, right?
Yeah. See you later.
Thanks to all our 0 listeners. Thanks.
Subscribe now.
Like and subscribe. Bye.